All right, and welcome back to another episode of Who's Lifting Today. I'm here with Michael Gray. Michael Gray has a very unique approach to training. He calls it kindness-based coaching. You can find him, The Kind Coach, on Instagram. He has his own podcast called the Middleish podcast, which I was on. Definitely worth checking that out. Michael, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you again. We had a good time when we
I
had you
am.
on the show, and I was like, man, we're going to
It
talk
was a great
again.
conversation.
It was, yeah, we
Yeah,
were really pleased
yeah.
with
It
it.
was. It was so good. Now we're having yet another
I know.
conversation.
We'll
The
just,
sign of a good first
that's
conversation
right.
is that there's a
We'll
second
just do
one.
this every few months, so,
Yeah, exactly. Michael, every like 3 months,
That's
bring him
right.
back, talk about
We'll have
kindness-based
you back
coaching.
on. Yeah. It'll be great.
Yeah, it'll circle around. We'll bring your other co-host on here. It'll be great.
That's right.
Actually, totally worth it. Now, I really like your approach. I think kindness-based coaching is something that is very interesting and something that I think it's an approach we don't see enough. First of all, tell us about it. Like, tell us like
Okay.
kind of how it works, how it differs from regular coaching, and maybe talk about like why is this the way? Why is this the way that people should go? And yeah, we can go from there.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm in my 14th year of being a trainer. And so I've done it for a while, longest job I've ever had, right? And when you do something for a certain amount of time, you pick up on things, right? And you kind of learn things when you're coaching people, and you learn things that work and don't work and that kind of thing. And just in the last few years, I feel like it's my awareness of how traditional like training, nutritional coaching, that kind of stuff works, and some real big pitfalls in there. And this kind of led to this sort of shift in my business model a little bit. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or something like that, like this official change, right? Um,
Yeah.
into this kind of kindness-based coaching. I don't know if it exists out there already. It might, like, it very well may. I haven't heard of it before, but I'm not saying that I invented this by any means, or just this kind of way of thinking about it. But
No one sue Michael. Go on.
yeah, should I do like TM? Okay, it's trademarked now.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of smart coaching
That's right.
by Michael Gray. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. And so, what I have noticed over these years is just like how traditional approaches to getting healthier. And we're not going to talk about like losing weight, right? Because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just getting healthier are often very unkind, like to ourselves. These approaches really reinforce like false beliefs we have about ourselves. They reinforce like these narratives about who we are and how we should relate to our bodies that are really unhealthy. They reinforce these false ideas that like you just don't have what it takes to be a healthy person. Maybe you just didn't try hard enough. It's your fault, right? Um, and it reinforces a lot of really ugly messaging out there that for me it kind of boils down to like, listen, if it's not kind, it's not healthy. And that's sort of
Mm.
like a maxim or whatever that I try to like base what I do and base my work off of clients, or base my work with clients off of, is that sure, someone could talk about losing weight, but if how do we go about that? Is it kind physically? Well, probably not because of traditional approaches, but also is it kind mentally? Is it kind emotionally? Because we see these typical approaches towards losing weight, which we have conflated with being healthy, right, are also very unkind to our emotions and our mental state and that kind of stuff. And so and I'm still working through this, absolutely, refining this, and I think I will be probably for a long time, but I really try hard to base and line everything up with that I do with the client on, is this kind? Does it reinforce kind things, kind messaging, kind feelings, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where it came from.
Okay. So you're kind of moving away from like, I guess like the tough love 100%, like if you've gained 5 pounds on the scale, that it's because you're a failure or
Right.
not committed to the
Yeah.
grind or
Yeah.
all that kind of jazz. And like really moving from a place of like, regardless of what your problems are,
hmm
like we're going to treat you with kindness. We're not going to play the blame game. We're just kind of going to focus on, well, what does make you healthier? Is that like a fair way to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah,
it?
I think so. I mean, a while ago, I moved away from like before and after pictures. A while ago, I mean, quite a long time ago, actually, I stopped asking clients about their weight because I was like, I don't care, and it really doesn't have any bearing on what we're doing.
Mhm.
If you're interested, okay, like that's your thing. But as a coach, I don't need to know if you had a 1 or 2 pound fluctuation in a week. Like, what
Sure.
am I doing there? I'm reinforcing again things that are going to make you beat yourself up for zero reason. So I had moved away from a lot of those things, but I guess I'm just sort of like digging in deeper to it,
Hmm.
doubling down on that because to me it feels like the right move. And with clients that I'm working with, there's like a lot of freedom there, man. Like to be like, oh, I don't have to beat myself into health. I don't have to guilt or
Right.
shame myself into a healthier person, which isn't it like crazy that like that's part of the traditional approach? Like, oh, be healthier by heaping more guilt and shame
No,
on you.
no pain, no gain.
Like how is that
Like,
healthy? Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
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 yeah.
no pain, no gain. Kind of this like I've called it like it's got like the hustle culture of
Hmm.
fitness, where like every problem can be resolved by digging deeper
Right,
and constantly like you just have to work harder. That's
right,
like always the solution. And I
right.
think like one, that's just like not true. I think we've learned that like rest and recovery are actually like super important. Like as a person who focuses
Hmm.
on strength training, rest days are valuable.
Critical.
Like I think that that's like this isn't even about like if like even if you were committed enough to the grind to do 7 days a week, it would be bad training.
Yeah,
Like I think that's
exactly.
like that it's like are you committed enough to not go to the gym? Like that's the real like
Absolutely.
strategy. But even if it did work, it's like, do we really have to like make people feel terrible about themselves to get whatever physical goals they
Hmm.
want? And that to me seems like a very scary trade-off.
Yeah.
But it was super normalized. It was even like how I was taught. I know one of the first like I'm not going to say mentors because honestly he was pretty bad. I'm not going to name names, but like one of the first like people who gave me advice in the training world was very much that tough love kind of coach. And it was like, man, even if they accomplish their goals, they just feel terrible about
Hmm.
themselves.
Yeah.
Or like any fluctuation, like 2 pounds, it's like, oh, well, that's because you fell off track.
Yeah.
Every little fluctuation. And it's, I think the hope there was that it creates accountability, which I don't think in itself is like a bad thing, but I think you're not really creating accountability. You're just kind of guilt tripping people into
Hmm.
their goals.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times just creates more problems than solutions, if it creates solutions
Absolutely.
at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think any solutions it creates are short term and short sighted. They're
Hmm.
often not sustainable. And if somehow someone does sustain them, they come at a real cost. I think mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, whatever, right?
Hmm.
Like with your family, that kind of stuff. They have a real cost to do it like that. And I think, I thought for a while that tough love approach, it makes sense if we believe that the fitness industry has it right, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, which is like you have to white knuckle it and double down and find more time and commit harder. Like if that's the problem, then sure, tough love makes sense. And
Hmm.
and I think we just kind of collectively for a long time assumed like, okay, this is the way, right? But if
Hmm.
if we begin to see like the flaws in the fitness industry and the like active pursuit of unhealth that the fitness industry places on us in the name of health, then I think we can begin to see like, oh, I'm not the problem. It is. Like that's not the
Right.
only way to do this. And in fact, that may be the worst way to do this. And there's a better way. I think when you were on, we may have talked about diet culture a little bit, or maybe not. Maybe that was in it.
A little bit.
Yeah,
We kind of like talked around it. It came up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like once you can begin to see like these elements of diet culture and how like the fitness industry in trying to perpetuate health is like promoting actively like unhealth, right? And I really believe
Hmm.
in like oftentimes like abusive ways. I think it's really really ugly when it gets down to it, and it's really taking advantage of people just to make money off of them. But when you start to see that, you start to see like, oh, there's a lot of space for me to do things a lot of different ways that can look like healthy, right? There's opportunity to grow and to learn, to quote unquote fail, and there's a need for growth. And I don't have to be motivated by guilt and shame. In fact, these things are probably actively working against where I'm trying to go. And I think once we kind of dive into that, man, it really opens up a lot of possibilities for how we can be healthier people. And we say a lot on Middleish on the podcast, like the fitness industry will tell you like you have to figure out how to fit in it, right?
Hmm.
Where I think that's completely backwards. I think as coaches, our job is like how do we how do we take health and fit it into your life? Like you're talking about like, just tough love and working harder. Like, okay, are you really going to tell like, a 40-year-old mom with 3 kids who has a job and life's just full and insane that if she wants to get healthier or feel a little bit better, she's just got to work harder?
She's got to train 6 days a week,
Yeah,
2 hours in the gym,
yeah. And
sweating every
if you
time,
want it bad enough, you'll find the time. It's like,
skip soccer practice,
yeah,
like,
this is insane.
miss dinner with your kids.
Yeah,
Like listen, you have other, I think the fitness world has like forgotten that in a little way, or it's getting better, but they really forgot like, hey, maybe I'm 40 with 3 kids, but I can't live fitness.
right.
I can't. I have other things going on. And like to no fault of your own, I would never go to a 40-year-old client and be like, hey, listen, I know like your kids' piano recitals tonight, or like they have to help with your homework, but I actually need you to spend 2 hours in the gym instead. It would be like an insane idea.
But it's
And I
normalized,
think
which is
super. Yeah.
crazy.
Like, are you committed enough to the grind?
Yeah,
You see
how
all these
bad do you
videos
want it?
about like, yeah,
Don't you
these
care
like
about you?
motivational music in the background and like all
Right?
this. Yeah. And we see all these success stories. But what I think we miss, and I think this is where your kindness-based coaching comes in, is that if people perceive the fitness world or like their fitness journey is going to be this super hard grinding, super hard, like, tough love motivational, I think you're missing a lot of people. Actually, I know it because I work with them.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing a lot of people who never join
Yeah.
because they're like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for
I
this
can't
world.
do
Like,
that.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I can't commit to this. I don't want some person yelling at me for an hour and then I pay them to yell at me for an hour.
Yeah.
And then like, I think, you're just missing people who are just saying no, not because they don't care about their health, but because like this world
Yeah.
sounds super intense and like not everyone resonates with that
Mm-hmm.
super intense lifestyle. I would even say like for myself, listen, I'm not a scary person. Okay. I'm very aware of this. All right. It's fine. I'm very approachable
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. And I get a lot of people who are very scared about starting their journey because that was the messaging that they get.
Mm-hmm.
And I end up being almost this like, I don't love the term safe space, but like I end up being kind of a place that they can join and get healthier and stronger without all that like intense messaging
Right.
that exists, because they know I'm not going to give them a hard time for missing a workout or not doing all their sets or didn't have time this week because their kids were acting up or whatever.
Right.
And this is why I really like your like kindness-based coaching idea, because like people just don't resonate with the hardcore
Yeah.
messaging. It's like you're missing out on such a huge demographic just because they like weren't committed to the grind enough. And I think
Right.
it's like that's silly. We gotta cater to them.
It is, and it's like you're missing out on those people, and I think the real flaw there is like we're reducing health to like it's an equation, like health equals either pounds lost or time spent in gym, whatever.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, what about like your relationship with your kids and your time to spend with them? What about how well you're sleeping? What about, like your performance at work? What about hobbies? Like there's all these other things that the fitness industry just writes off as they don't matter.
Yeah.
Like all you need to do is spend more time exercising.
But do you have abs?
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
real question.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have abs, then you're a failure.
Exactly.
And, then
Yeah. If you don't have abs, then obviously you didn't want it bad enough.
and that's because you weren't committed to the grind. Yeah, no, I absolutely feel like it. And like one thing that I come up with, or I see a lot, is kind of like an all or nothing mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the idea is like you even see it like we're in January right now, and there are already we're mid-January and people have like missed a workout and have already fallen have quote unquote fallen off. Like that was it. They weren't committed enough that they're out. How does the kindness-based coaching approach like the all or nothing mentality, or people who have that all or nothing mentality?
I think there's a few things. I think one, I think a lot of it starts with how I interact with those situations, with the client I'm working with. And I think it's really important for me, and this is easy for me to do because I really believe in this, but I think it's important, like if a client's like, check in on Monday, hey, how'd the weekend go? Man, I had pizza and beer and we went out for breakfast and da. That for me, it's not like, okay, let's go into crisis mode. Let's try to damage control this. For me, honestly, my approaches are like, oh, what'd you get for breakfast? Oh, waffles?
Yeah.
Like, are you a maple syrup guy? You like peanut butter on them, or like, oh, what kind of beer do you like? You had ice cream? Cool. What kind? And
Yeah, yeah.
and I think there's a lot of it that starts there. And just to like, let's bring down this because they often send those messages to me. You can just feel the anxiety and like, oh, what's going to happen here? And so I think if you can immediately like just like, okay, this isn't a thing, right? This is not a thing. We don't need to escalate
Mhm.
this into something that, seems like it has some great value when a year from now this doesn't matter even a little bit.
Right.
And so I think approaching those situations, those kind of circumstances that people usually wind up flipping to the none from the all, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just kind of de-escalating them a little bit, I guess you could say. And then doing that, and then just really talking through people. Like I think an important part of this is to have sometimes frequent and long conversations around this because I really believe like we all are just like downloaded with specific messaging around our bodies and fitness and stuff from a very early age, and
Yeah.
we're exposed to that repeatedly and for a long time. So by the time you get to like 35 or 40, like, man, we've had so much messaging that tells you either you do it all or you may as well not do any of it. And
Mhm.
so I think there's a lot of conversations that have to go into that. But I also think that a big part of that is having, like you said, I'm not a big fan of this term safe space either, but a safe space to be like, okay, here's where I'm at. Here are my feelings on the situation or whatever. And I present them to you. Let's talk through it.
Yeah.
And then talk through it. Um,
Just like a no judgment zone.
yeah, because to me, there's zero reason to judge that because it's not something that is able to be judged. It's just a thing that happened. You know what I mean? Like if
Mhm.
I go ride my bike, are you going to judge it? Well, it doesn't even make sense. Like, okay, I rode my bike. What does that mean? Okay, you ate
Cool
pizza.
story.
What does that
Yeah.
mean? Cool, it's a thing that happened. And I
Yeah.
think I think a couple things. One, I like to look at those situations as kind of two options. Either we go, okay, whatever, no big deal. It's Monday, here we go, you know,
Right.
or or sometimes I think there are like strategies and things you can pull out from that. Okay, so this is what happened. Um, what led to this, right? Like what were the steps that led there? What got you in this mental state, or okay, you ate half a gallon of ice cream on Friday night. What was going on? What were you feeling? What were you experiencing?
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of times there's things that we can learn that we can apply in the future, not out of judgment or anything like that, or to get it right, but to just set things up and have an awareness and mindfulness with ourselves that we can make decisions that are in line with our goals. And I'll say this, I think sometimes the decisions that are in line with your goals are eating ice cream without feeling guilt, right? Like eating a bowl of
Yep.
cereal at 11 o'clock at night without feeling any guilt, or having another piece of pizza or beer. I think that is another aspect of the fitness and diet industry that it completely gets ignored. It's just about just eat the right things. It's like, no, I think we need to learn how to eat all the things in a
Mhm.
way that is not only just about, like honoring our mindfulness, but honoring like our ability and agency to, we're freaking adults. We can do what we want, and that's
We can do what we
okay.
want. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like it's not. No, I totally agree. I
Yeah.
think like understanding why is the big one as well. Is that like not in like a judgmental way. I think like
Mm.
to be very clear, is
Just
that like okay,
understanding.
you missed a couple workouts last week. Like let's talk about why.
Hmm.
Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe there's something else we need to talk about.
Hmm.
And we adjust from there. Sometimes you miss workouts because you're sick. It's
Hmm.
totally fine. You were sick. We get it. I had like unfortunately a couple of clients who got COVID, so they didn't feel like working out. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is a totally understandable
Probably
reason. I
shouldn't work
also
out.
wouldn't have worked out and probably shouldn't
Yeah.
work out. And like that's totally fine. Maybe you shouldn't be in the gym.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think, those things are going to happen too. Is
Hmm.
that like, part of being consistent with training is allowing yourself to be imperfect.
Hmm.
Things are going to come up. Your kid's going to be sick. Your job was super stressful.
Yeah.
Events came up, holidays, whatever it might be. There's going to be reasons why you don't get all your workouts in every
Right.
week. That doesn't mean you're bad or that you suck
Yep.
or anything along those lines.
That's life.
But we have to accept that exactly. We have
Yeah.
to be like, okay, I missed workouts because of this holiday over the weekend.
Yeah.
That's why I missed the workouts.
Yeah.
And that's like a perfect, and let's get back into training. Like that's really,
Yeah, exactly.
no judgment whatsoever.
And I think that's
And I think that's like,
no, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
Because I think that's, a big part of this kindness-based coaching is like, I really feel like the fitness industry, diet industry, they've done a good job of um, kind of leading us to believe that we're not really trustworthy. We can't trust ourselves. And I think
Mhm.
that's a big piece of this kindness-based coaching is like, you're the expert in yourself, right? Like, sure, I'm a coach. I've been doing this a long time. You know way better than I do what's going to work for you, you know? Um, but I think a large part of that is learning to trust ourselves. And I think there are times where, just because we have something planned doesn't mean it's the best option, right? Like someone may
Mhm.
have a workout planned for Thursday afternoon. Okay, that doesn't mean that working out on Thursday afternoon is the right call on Thursday afternoon. We may think so on Sunday when we're planning our week, and that's a good thing to do, right? But if we can't,
Planning ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if we can't pivot and do things differently out of a trust that we kind of know what's best in the moment for our bodies, then we're not learning anything about ourselves. And I think we're diving into just this whole, belief that we're not trustworthy. Um, and so I think, a lot of times it's like, man, maybe you had a workout planned, but maybe you slept like crap, or your kid was up early and you had a stressful day at work. And maybe what your body really needs is to go, I need to just rest today. I'm beat.
Hmm.
And expending this energy would actually work against me. But our industry tells us like, well, that's not the right call, right? There's no value in
Well, you
rest. There's
should
only value in work. So go work.
you should push through. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact,
And
there's
and,
like a
and I
popular reel audio going on around right now. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like, oh, you're tired? You don't feel like working out? Well, too bad. I'm tired. I don't feel like I'm doing it. It's like, oh my God, like this
I've seen it on
messaging,
TikTok.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And it tells you stop listening to your body, only do what you've already planned. Like,
Mhm.
and to me, there's no kindness there. There's no trust there. There's no like building a better relationship with your body, your food, or anything like that. It can't exist there.
Yeah, I agree. And like to be honest, like your workout plan is always a theoretical answer, right?
Hmm.
But and I think this is especially true when people start training more than 4 days a week, especially strength training, is that like there are just times where that like fifth day, your body just needs to rest more than anything else, more
Hmm.
than the work that you put into it. Even for 4 days a week, that's true. Can even be true for like three. Is that sometimes like the best option is not pushing through. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I'm really fatigued today.
Hmm.
I'm only lifting like 60% of what I'm supposed to be lifting right now. And that feels hard. That's kind of a sign that like maybe I should just like not train today.
Yeah.
Like, and like that's actually the best thing for your goals.
Right.
And I think like that's not even like, oh, because you didn't slack off or anything along those lines. Like that's actually the best decision in that moment
Right.
is
That
to
was the
not
right
train.
call. That was the
That
good
was
thing, the
like,
healthy thing. Yeah.
yeah, like I want you to deadlift your body weight, and this is the best solution to get there for this workout is to not do it, which I think is like a very weird mentality,
It really
and
is.
is like, well, you should have just pushed through, and you should have just, like done everything else in life perfectly. And I think it also is good to keep in mind
Yeah.
is that like again, our lives are not fitness. We have other things going
Hmm.
on. Like maybe you're not feeling the workout because you had a fight with your spouse like just before or the last night before, or your kids are acting up, or your business is in a stressful season,
Hmm.
and working out is just adding on to that stress.
Hmm.
That's okay. Take that day off. Rest, recover,
Yeah.
like no shame. Like I want you to be recovered for your workouts, not just like pushing through. I think the opposite can be true where like working out can help de-stress. But like you got to call that as is, and sometimes the written workout plan is not the solution there.
Yeah.
I think like we have to be with a very, and as trainers we have to like also see what that's going on, right? We have to like
Absolutely.
acknowledge,
Yeah.
like give our the women that I work with, like if they don't get their workout in, like give them grace to not have that workout in. I think
Right.
that's like a big thing as well.
Right. And I think that goes right back into that all or none piece of like I think we're really good at taking a very insignificant event and making it monumental, right?
Yeah.
Like I've had people just ready to throw in the towel because of like a couple days, like a couple missed
Yeah.
workouts and some ice cream and pizza, and they're like, I may as well just quit. It's like, what is happening? And I don't mean that like in a judgmental or like laughing at kind of way, but it's just why as the fitness industry like it, done such a good job at like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't blowing out of proportion pretty insignificant events. Like you missed a workout. So what? Like, what does that mean?
Your body doesn't care.
Like, what does that mean? Is that, are you going to be like in a year, are you going to be like so far behind because of this one workout or tomorrow? Or, I mean, like it, it doesn't mean anything. Like it literally means
Yeah.
nothing. And so I think that's a large part of that all or none thinking is kind of tackling it is really beginning to respond to events appropriately and accordingly and not blowing them out of proportion. Now, sure, I think there can be like, mindset things going into that or reasons that we did or didn't do something that we might want to look at because
Mhm.
done repeatedly over time, they could be problematic against our health, but not because not working out is a bad choice 100% of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like the kindness-based coaching. It's not about like everything is always fine.
Right.
It's always that like you have to look at the situation. Is this a problem? Is this not a problem? And if it is a problem, we address it with kindness. And if it's not a problem, we let people know it's not a problem. And I think like that's like sounds like that's the approach that you're going with, that it's not just like,
Right.
anything the person does
No.
is fine.
No.
Is like not the messaging. I just want to be like clear on that.
Yeah,
Just like
absolutely.
misinterpret is that like
Absolutely.
there's mistakes can still happen, but that doesn't mean you can't fix them.
Right.
Or you can't like or like it doesn't mean we have to like hate you now.
Right. And I think
Like I think that's like
Yeah.
you didn't commit to the 5 a.m. boot camp workouts. That means you're soft and that you can't that there's
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the important piece is a lot of this, the kindness piece comes into how do we respond to what we do. How do we evaluate it and treat it and respond to it? Because I think that's where a lot of that unkindness typically comes from is when we do something that we feel like we shouldn't have or wasn't on the plan, that's when we immediately start guilting ourselves, shaming ourselves. We start this internal script that we've rehearsed and played a million times in our life, and here we go again. And so I think a lot of that kind of space coaching is like, let's look at what we're communicating to ourselves and how we're speaking to ourselves and what are our scripts that we fall into and what are the stories we're telling ourselves as we eat or work out or whatever. And let's begin to look at those. Because if we can look at those, like the reason people don't work out or never eat vegetables, to me the inherent fix isn't like we'll just start working out or eating vegetables, right? It's like what's going on behind that? Why aren't you a priority to you? Why isn't your health a priority?
What's the why?
Yeah, and so then let's look at some of that stuff. What's going on here? And because then it kind of takes care of itself. Because if you feel like, man, I'm worth being around, like I'm worth functioning optimally. I'm worth, like having fruits and vegetables and vitamins and minerals in me. I'm worth moving my body. Then it gets really easy to do because like there's a real purpose for that, and that's just being the healthiest you there is, and you're worth taking care of. And I think that's a lot of times why like these, fad diets that they fall apart because they're just like trying to put a band-aid on this gaping wound of like no value, no worth. And it's like, oh, but you ate some carrots. Cool, you're good now. You're a success. Everything's good, And,
Or you don't ever need to understand the why. You just need to work harder.
Yeah, just do the why.
As opposed to like,
here's what you do, go do it.
As opposed to like, if you understand the why, you can actually like fix the problem. And then like, we always talk about, like discipline and motivation are so huge in the fitness industry. And I personally think that they're like wildly overrated. That like that it's like the people I know who stick with training, and I would include myself in that, are not the people that have like never ending levels of motivation and discipline. I have found a way to like training.
Right.
And so when I train, when I exercise, it's not like, oh man, I just got to push through.
Right.
It's like, it's like I actually want to go. I actually enjoy the process. I don't think I'm more motivated than anybody else. And this is the people that I see who stick with fitness. They're not like, wow, what a disciplined human being. It's like, no, they like working out.
Right.
Like it makes them feel better. They enjoy it. They're getting results from their training. Their friends are at the gym.
Right.
That like, this is not like a disciplined person. They're just like doing a thing they like doing. And I think that's where we have to try and get ourselves to is how do we get there? Like, how do we enjoy training? How do we we're not guilt tripping to get there.
Right.
We're not like telling ourselves how terrible we are to move us into the gym. We're like excited to go because it makes us feel better. We enjoy the process. We're seeing the results that we want to see. Like that's, that makes way more sense than just telling yourself like, well, I'm a terrible person if I don't go or I've fallen off. Like that to me is like at best short term.
Right.
At worst, no wonder you left is like, I would also, if every workout I went in was like a guilt trip for that slice of pizza I had, like I would also fall off and not do training. And I think like that's, we just got to shift that messaging. Like, I think that's huge.
Yeah. Because like you're talking about, the last thing you were saying there, just everything is so charged, right? Like everything is charged. Everything is done with like obligation or a very specific purpose, and everything just like you're weighing every choice you do all day long, as opposed to just like trusting that, man, things are going to level out, and like if you eat more pizza one day than maybe you needed, and just like stuff levels out. And when we really like learn to like listen to our bodies and our minds, and we dig into those stories that we tell ourselves, I think it gets even easier. But like you're saying, man, like when people are motivated, like the reason they're doing something is guilt or shame, like all we're doing is reinforcing that those two things are critical in our path to being healthier, right?
Yeah.
And just that sentence alone makes no sense, right? Like how are guilt and shame in any way a part of the path to being healthier? They aren't, but that's what we do typically. Is I'm gonna tell myself I'm a piece of crap, and and this and that. I'm gonna hire a coach who belittles me and guilts me into shames me into being a healthier person. It's like this isn't a path. This isn't a path at all.
This is not a solution.
Right. Yeah. And the only reason we think it's a solution is because we say that losing weight is getting healthy. That's the marker of getting healthy, is losing weight. So sure, you can shame and guilt yourself into losing weight for a time being. I don't think it'll last. But the assumption is, okay, I lost weight, so I'm healthier. So obviously this thing works. I just need to like dig in deeper and, guilt and shame myself more and longer so I can sustain it. It all falls apart so quick, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, this has been like amazing. I really appreciate this. I really like the approach. Where can people find you? If they're looking for more help, talk about your socials, your podcast, let us know, like, where's the best place if they want to learn more about this, like kindness-based coaching, like where can they find it?
Sure. I'm probably most active on Instagram, just the kind coach. Maybe there might be some underscores. Let me double check that real quick. I have a podcast called Middleish that I'm a co-host of, that you guys can definitely check out. This is a little bit of a spoiler. We release weekly, but we're changing that. We're kind of changing some things. We're going to release an episode monthly and do some more stuff on social. So that'll be a little bit different. But it's
nice.
the_kind_coach on Instagram. That's probably the best place to connect with me. You can find the podcast Middleish on Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all the podcasts, all the places. And then you can connect me on Facebook too. I don't really use a business page that much. I use my personal page, just Michael Gray, and there's a million of us. So good luck.
Yeah, go find the Instagram. Go through it that way.
Instagram.
Yeah,
a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks, man. It's been fun.
I really like this approach, and thanks for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Good to talk with you.
All right, and thanks everyone else for listening to another episode of Who's Lifting Today.